Hello friends, let's discuss an essay that was asked in UPSC 2021 essay exam that was conducted in January 2022. So that's the topic is, there are better practices to best practices. There are better practices to best practices. Now, how can something be better than the best? So before I actually delve on that, I'm reminded of a few lines from one of my favorite songs written by Sahir Ludhianvi, where he says that मुझसे पहले कितने शायर आए और आकर चले गए, कुछ आहें भरकर लौट गए, कुछ नगमे गाकर चले गए, वो भी एक पल का हिस्सा थे, मैं भी एक पल का हिस्सा हूँ. एंड देन साहिर लुधियानी फर्दर सेज, कल और आएंगे नगमों की खिलती कलियां चुनने वाले, मुझसे बेहतर कहने वाले, तुमसे बेहतर सुनने वाले, कल कोई मुझको याद करे, क्यों कोई मुझको याद करे, मशरूफ ज़माना मेरे लिए, क्यों वक्त अपना बर्बाद करे. Sahir Ludhianvi, when he wrote these lines in 1970s for a movie, he was at the zenith of his career. Every producer wanted to bring him in his work. Singers wanted to sing on the lyrics written by him. But such a prolific post-independent poet knew at that point of time that his poetic brilliance would be outshined by the poets which will come in the subsequent generations. He believed in this transient nature of humankind. So, though he was talking about poetry and art in general, but we can extend the same idea to all spheres of human life. There is no record, no feat of humankind which cannot be surpassed. So, whether that is in the field of cricket, whether it is in the field of space, whether it's related to some the way you organize your business or the country or the international affairs, or anything about agriculture, about medicine, about education. In all these spheres, we find that there is always a better way than the way which you think is best. There's no such best way. There is no such place where progress will become stagnated. You can always surpass, you can always cross or leave behind what has been done, what the best has been done by the previous generations or someone else, even in your own generations. And times change. With changing times, better practices come. And then the best practices come, but then with when times change, new permutations and combinations arise, new kind of problems arise, new kinds of resources are available. And human beings with this entrepreneurship and these their desire to innovate and desire to outperform, with such courageous men, we see that they do something which nobody would have ever thought of can be done. So let's take some examples. Of course, we will talk about history also, and we can talk about, as I said, economy, agriculture, art and culture, and all these spheres of human life. So looking into the sports, for example, is one of the best way to illustrate that. Now, when Sachin Tendulkar came, before Sachin Tendulkar, there was Sunil Gavaskar. So Sunil Gavaskar, during the days of Sunil Gavaskar, nobody would have ever thought that there would be a batsman who would be able to play better than Sunil Gavaskar, or someone who would be able to break his records. But then came Sachin Tendulkar, considered the god of cricket. Now, would there be someone who is better than Sachin Tendulkar? Would there be someone who would play in a better way, incorporate some better practices in sports? Obviously, yes. And we see that in Olympics also. We see that in all the sports. Once upon a time in Olympics, in athletics, no one would have ever thought that someone can run in less than 10 seconds, then in less than 9 seconds. But these days, records are shattered. Every subsequent 4 years, we see that how humans have broken all theories about excellence. So while these are the cases of records in sports, we can say that similar things exist in practices also, with the way you conduct your industries also, with the way you organize your business and any sphere of human life, even your personal life. You may think, okay, this is the best way, this is the best way someone can study, or this is the best way I can deal with this problem. But no, look beyond. There will always be a way which is better than that, and then there will always be a way which will be better than better than the best. So stagnation is dead. Do not get fixated with anything. Now, on these lines, we can talk about some examples to illustrate this thing, and we will also talk about some concerns, some areas of concerns which can be discussed in the scope of this essay. So, some examples, for example, which can be here, like freedom struggle, if we talk about. Now, when moderates were fighting freedom, or even before that, during 1857, there were our freedom fighters, Rani Jhansi and Tatya Tope, and they were courageous people. They were immensely courageous. But then the subsequent people who came, who took the freedom struggle for freedom in their hands, they believed that their practices were better than the practices of or the ways of struggle of these freedom fighters. Then revolutionaries thought that no, you need to fight in a different way than the way you have already been fighting. Then and so on. Then came Mahatma Gandhi ji. Then Gandhi ji showed, okay, you all people have been fighting in a wrong way, and I will introduce you certain tools and techniques and certain practices which you can incorporate, and they will be better than the what you have been considering as the best. Then in days to come, even Gandhi ji was left behind. Within in the final lag of the freedom movement, the leadership for freedom struggle was taken by other people, the younger generation. And after that, when we see that we are moved, when during second 5-year plan or in 1960s, when India was going for industrialization or state-sponsored industrialization, centralized model of industrialization, when country was going forward, that was possibly something which Gandhiji would not have appreciated. Gandhiji was more drawn towards village and rural development, and he did not see urbanization or industrialization as a good practice. But his ways were, uh, I would say, put on hold to make space for new kind of ways, new kind of practices to emerge. And then see the paradox here. In 1960s or in 1950s, the Soviet model of centralized planning was considered as the best way to uplift your economy. But today, is it so? Today, we think in a very different way. We think let the private enterprises they come forward. And in fact, we're talking today about a million mutinies. That was a term which Economic Survey came forward with. So now we are promoting startups. We are trying to make every person in every family, in every street, there should be some entrepreneurs. That is what we are trying to do. So this kind of model of development is very different. This kind of practices for economic development are very different from the kind of one which we consider the best at some at some point of time. Now, now depending upon your field, whichever field you come forward, you can think of some examples within your field, uh, law or medicine or anything else. I had done computer engineering. So in my field of software development, we know that there was once upon a time there was a this waterfall model of development of software. In software in SDLC, software development life cycle, there was this model of waterfall which has long been rejected, and now then there was a time when the V-shaped model came forward. And then in days to come, even that has been replaced by new ways or new practices in software development. If we are shying away from incorporating these new practices, we would lose that edge which we have in IT. So it's really important to understand that no practice is the best practice, because there is always a practice which you can come forward with, in which you can improvise the practices already done, the practices which you're thinking is the best. And as I said, and one thing which we can also add here, some extra dimensions we will take up here. Sometimes it's a luxury, but sometimes it's a forced. In a way, what I mean to say, we do not have a choice. We have to think of a better practice, because we are faced with some situations, some problems, some catastrophes, some crises, which the previous generations may not have seen. So our solutions should be innovative, should be unique, and they have to be better than the solutions which were considered the best in the previous generations, or maybe by some other group of people in some other continent or country or state. Because we have to come up with a practice which is fitting best according to the permutation combinations are surrounding it. Now, some other ideas which you can take here is that who has a claim to say that something is best? Who has a claim to do that? Now, there is a saying something is good is very subjective. Saying something best would obviously even more subjective. You can explore the dimension. Other dimension you can explore is that sometimes people construct entry barriers for newcomers. And this kind of entry barriers kind of thing we see in medicine also, in law also, in field of construction, in business, in politics, everywhere we see. Some kind of entry barriers are constructed so that newcomers cannot come up. And that dimension you can explore. Uh, okay, so newcomers, they will obviously come up with newer practices, and that will dismantle the hierarchies which have been built by people who are already in power, who are already at the number one positions in those fields. Next, you can take up some ideas from governance in our time, or some social political issues you can take up. So, for example, as I was telling you, this economy can talk about that how the corporate governance and industrial policies, they change from time to time, and that SEZ model, which was once we were very much running after that SEZ model, but now we are somewhere not so much. We are not. We somehow what got disillusioned with that SEZ model. Similarly, when also talk about space, in space, and and in any field basically where you seek and that there is a scope for improvement. In governance, I was talking about. Now, these Panchayati Raj institutions and this right to work and these direct benefit schemes, there are some initiatives, some policies, and some practices which are considered to be the best in a way that they were phenomenal. They they were path breaking, but still there were certain problems in each of this, and which we must get rid of. So, for example, in this problem, in this panchayat panchayati raj institutions, we have this problem of uh, pan, this pati, panchayati pati, in panchayat pati, in the way that husband has the real power, but just as a stamp or as a nominal person, his wife is appointed as the sarpanch. Similarly, in right to work, there are issues of delayed payments, and similarly in direct benefit transfer schemes, there is this issue of or missing beneficiaries, basically rightful beneficiaries who are missed due to lack of documents. So all those practices which are considered the best, we should remember that there are still ways we can improvise them. And for that to happen, we also need to have someone who can criticize and show us the mirror where we're doing good or bad. Now, there are a lot we can talk here. We can also talk about a very wonderful thing here. Not just we should be bothered about all these grand things, politics, governance, and economy, industries, agriculture, and so on. A very trivial thing, which happens in every household. Uh, when a new bahu walks in, a new daughter-in-law walks in a house, then the mother-in-law, the sas, the mother-in-law often thinks that uh, this nai bahu is tempering, is altering something, the way she's running the house, and she is breaking those best way of organizing the houses. So this mother-in-law sometimes gets hostile to the changes and the recommendations which this new daughter-in-law comes up with. So that kind of attitude is not good. You should be ready to accept some recommendations or changes or reforms in that domestic sphere also. And that holds true for the daughter-in-law also. She should not just be concerned she should not just consider her own knowledge as the best knowledge, but should also be ready to accept this fact that something beyond her, beyond those things which she considers as best, they can something better than that may be found in the wisdom or in the traditions also. So we all basically, irrespective of who we are, where we are, irrespective of our genders and all these things, we should be open to accept change. And we should not be fixated with this idea कि यार मैंने जो किया है best वही है. No, there is always a better way to do that. Be ready to do that. And the one who is ready to accept it, the one who is ready to improvise it, वही आगे जाएगा. And the one who get fixated with these ideas that no, my practices are the best, and the best that can be done has already been achieved, that person will get stagnated, and stagnation is death. And we have seen a lot of companies, companies like Yahoo, They went bankrupt, or in a way that they lost their business opportunities because they were not able to change themselves with changing time. They were not able to improvise what they already used to consider the best. Okay. Now, similar things where we have to end soon. Time is running out. So there are certain processes to which we have hitched in the contemporary times, and we are very hesitant to change. And one such thing is the way we recruit our judges in our country. Now, NJAC, that Constitution Amendment Bill was brought forward. I think it was 100th, or check on that, what number it was. It was brought forward and it was passed by both houses of the parliament with a special majority. It was passed by more than half of the state legislatures. It got the stamp of the president also. But at the final stroke, it was completely rejected by the judiciary, saying that this government cannot tamper with the traditions which have been set up, and especially those which comes under the purview of judiciary. Now, this kind of fixation that we will not alter what has been considered the best, this is something dangerous, and we must not do that. That's a theme which I say is very dominant in this essay. Now, something extra which we will say, and which we can say, is that we must be very cautious when we are recommending changes or reforms in something which has stood the test of time, or something which is considered the best. If you have the power to make changes, it must be done with a very thoughtful manner. It should not be done in a reckless manner. Remember that with greater powers comes greater responsibilities. So whatever changes we have to introduce with the practices which are considered as the best, they should be done in a very thoughtful manner. A lot of input should go into that. It should not be impulsive. It should not be reckless, not in haste. So this is one thing which you can write. Also, you can talk about that how we should stay away from those vulgar creativity, or this desire to forcefully come out with something which we think is better than the best. So like in the entertainment industry, we see that quite often taking place, that people just want to come up with a song which is better than the song, and they just make some remix. Or sometimes we see that in the name of creativity, they are coming with some too much of vulgarity. These are wrong things. So your desire and your motivation for coming up with something better must be genuine. It should not have some ulterior motives. Okay, so that is one thing which you can talk about. So towards the conclusion, I can say that, see, this essay has got two fundamental themes which I would like to clarify again. It has got many themes, but two things are there pretty dominant. First is that there is always a better way to do something which has already been done. Okay. And second, this thing gives us hope also, because we are surrounded by so many problems in our time. So many catastrophes and crises are there around us. Look what is taking place in the world around us. Taliban took over Afghanistan. Russia and Ukraine are fighting war with each other, and climate change is taking place. There were heat waves in London, and in India also the climate is very erratic. There are floods in Bangalore and elsewhere in cities in northeast, and then there's this corona and COVID and so on. There's crime rate is there, and all these problems with which we are surrounded with, tuberculosis, malaria, diseases. There is hope that we can solve these problems, because whatever the best ways have been devised so far, whatever the best practices have been incorporated to fight these problems, there would definitely be something which is better than these. We may not have discovered them yet, but we should be hopeful, and we should have the perseverance that we will find that better way to solve those problems. So be open to accept change, and have that courage that yes, we will change, we will make this world a better place to live in, so that when the future generations they come, they find that this world is a better than how we got it from our ancestors. This is one thing which you can talk about. So again, कल और आएंगे नगमों की खिलती कलियां चुनने वाले. So the point here was, मुझसे बेहतर कहने वाले, तुमसे बेहतर सुनने वाले, क्यों कोई मुझको याद करे, क्यों कोई मुझको याद करे, मशरूफ ज़माना मेरे लिए क्यों वक्त अपना बर्बाद करे. We just are here for a moment. मैं पल दो पल का शायर हूँ. So sometimes this is the way you can get some ideas from your favorite songs, or try to use that kind of knowledge in your essays if you can. There can be better ways to write this essay also, and this is not the best way to write an essay. Obviously, the topic itself is so. So with this, I will end this here. I hope this was beneficial to you all. A lot more can be said, but time, we have 20 minutes limit, we have already touched. Thank you all. I hope this was beneficial to you. Good luck.
कल तुमसे जुदा हो जाऊंगा, गो आज तुम्हारा हिस्सा हूँ, मैं पल दो पल का शायर।